Hello, I'm Steve Hackett. You're watching and listening to Linea Rock.
Wolflight is the title of the new Steve Hackett's album, studio album, and Inside Out on Inside Out label. And Steve is here at Linea Rock Studios to talk with us. Before we start, just say thanks and hello to some friends: Marco Gilardetti, Barbara Caserta, Mario Giammetti, and Giulia Di Staso. Let's begin straight from Wolflight.
Okay.
We're going to listen to some songs like Courtesy and Fire, or the title track from this brand new concept album, which is something like a trip through space and time. Would you like to tell us more about the meaning of the opera and the inspiration you had composing it, mostly before and during the dawn?
Yeah, it's interesting that you use the word opera because it's one of the genres that we borrowed very heavily from with it. It's something that comes from many different styles of music. So it's everything from there's pop music in there, there's rock music, there's world music, there's music from Azerbaijan, there's music from all over the place on it. And the idea of the title Wolflight is something that it's the hour before the dawn when the wolves like to hunt. So it's as a kind of symbolic thing for the record, but also at the album sleeve, we have real wolves on the front. I spent some time with some wolves 1 hour outside Rome and had a wonderful time with these creatures, playing with them and feeding them and meeting their young. And it was one of the most extraordinary days of my life.
In fact, the cover of Wolflight is a real picture taken by Maurizio and Angela Vicedomini.
Yes.
You have been introduced to a herd of Czechoslovakian wolves in an Italian breeding facility.
Yes.
The herd actually accepted you into their group. And there are striking pictures of you right in the middle of the herd, while the wolves surround you in circle to protect you. This must have been an almost mystical experience of animal-to-man contact for such a spiritual man as you are. Can you tell us your feelings? And also, did this experience came first, or was it the consequence of choosing such title for your new album?
Well, the title, there's my wife Jo wrote an article for a magazine some years ago, which was very popular, and it was on the subject of the Wolflight. And I should explain that the Wolflight is the hour before the dawn. It's the time when wolves hunt, and there's a very early reference to this in literature with Homer, the Odyssey. He talks about Odysseus waking up in the Wolflight, so very early in the morning. And also it's a time when I'm often awake myself, working and writing, say about 5 in the morning, just before the dawn comes up, just as the light is starting to change. So, yeah, it's an extraordinary thing, isn't it?
Okay. You already told us about music, but to this one, maybe you can answer just yes or no.
Yes.
One of the main points of the songwriting in Wolflight, and in general, your attitude towards music, is the eclecticism. Musically speaking, the record is strongly characterized by powerful heavy riffs mixed with orchestral parts, some oriental sounds, and acoustic atmospheres too, with a lot of wonderful melodies and very epic choruses. I think it could be surely classified as one of the best works in your entire solo career. Do you agree?
Yes, I think I feel very proud of the album, and I think it's the best produced of all of the albums that I've done. And for many years, I was trying to do this thing, which is a kind of pan-genre approach, many different styles. Whether you call it eclectic or not, it's a kind of a travelogue in a way, because I get very influenced by the places that I visit, both as a musician, but also just as a tourist sometimes. And my wife and I, Jo, we often reflect on our experiences of being in places such as Morocco, or as we were recently, we were in Iceland. And these places are all the extremes, you know, the extreme heat, the desert, and then suddenly you're in another world, which is the world of snow and volcanoes and polar bears, 50 miles from the North Pole. And sometimes it's work that takes me there, and other times it's just to go and see something. So all of it seems to influence the work that I do. So as I say, part travelogue, but it's also part time machine, because we like to write stories about the past and to honour the ancestors, the early forms of music that they were making. If they were drumming, it was with bones, literally, bone orchestras, and the earliest flutes are bones being hollowed out for people to blow down. And
historical.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a sort of prehistoric link with this stuff, and I think with the link with the wolves, who were before the idea of the dog is a man's best friend, as we say in English. I think the wolves, which were the ancestors of the dogs, they were an important link to with nature, leading man to water, food, shelter, protection from floods, all sorts of things. So a lot of the album touches these different areas. I think it's not just about the music, but where the music comes from.
Okay, let's change. Steve, you are one of the guitar players who left a sign in music history. As before you, it was for the great Hendrix, Zappa, Fripp, Beck, Clapton, Blackmore, Page, Lee, Mayall, Garcia, Cipollina, Gilmour, and so on. After you, personality and creativity in guitar playing became rarer, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of just few examples: Brian May, Tom Verlaine, Adrian Belew, Eddie Van Halen, or Tom Morello.
Yes.
What do you think about it? Is there a guitarist that surprised you in the last 30 years?
Well, you're quite right. I grew up listening to all the people that you've mentioned, and sometimes those people have listened to me, and sometimes we became friends, with these people. Yes. And it's a very good exclusive club to be part of. But at the same time, I listened to Hendrix way back in the day, who was marvelous, of course. I was listening to Andres Segovia at the same time. So the work of classical guitarists was important. And of course, in the past 30 years, then I think that has to include the late, great Paco de Lucia, who was a flamenco guitarist, non-parallel. And I take on board more and more of the influence of that, whether it's just a tone or a hand movement or something.
Hedges, do you know him?
I don't know much about Michael Hedges. Somebody in recent times who I think plays marvelous blues is Joe Bonamassa. I think marvelous. You've probably had him here. He's a great player with the blues. Yes, he's younger, but he plays with honesty and energy and conviction, which is what guitar playing I think is all about. I think it's not about technique. It's about how you feel it. Yeah. It's about when I first could play 3 chords on the guitar, and I realized that a lot of people watching or listening would think, oh, I want to be able to play a million notes. I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to run before I can walk. But in the days when you can just walk and play just those first 3 chords, the music that you can make with the guitar is the most magical thing. The magic is actually done with less. It's how it affects you.
In fact, another side of your greatness is the ability of being always innovative as an acoustic guitar player and as a researcher on electric sounds. And the album Wolflight is just another glaring example. Another one.
Well, I'm glad you like that. Yeah, acoustic guitar is just as important to me as electric. I finally got the sound on the acoustic that I've been looking for years. There's a track called Earthshine on it, and it was actually influenced quite a lot by the sound of the piano, and I wanted to get this kind of sound on the nylon guitar. So we didn't use a lot of bottom not a lot of top, just the sound in the middle, you know, rolling out those unpleasant frequencies, and then there's quite a lot of reverb on it, but we took a lot of the top out of the reverb because I want other people to be able to get this sound as well. You know, just looking for what's in the middle, the sweet spot of the guitar. Of course, the electric guitar is still important, and it's like a voice, and but it's not the only side of the guitar. It's got many different characters.
And now, if you want, let's go back to 1970 and talk about your long artistic life, starting from the beginning. We've got here the first and the last concept album. Maybe after 45 years, history is repeating. Would you like to give us a particular memory of when you and your brother John used to play in Quiet World project, and about the recordings of the Road LP?
Well, it's the album that I made with three brothers. Yes. They were the Heather brothers. They were English, but they'd moved to South Africa. Their family, I think, emigrated to South Africa. And then the boys came back and they started to work in music. They were looking for a guitarist. They also invited my brother to be part of it as well. So he got some early experience in a recording studio.
Was it your first experience in recording?
Yeah, first experience in a recording studio, and they played a trick on me the first time in the studio. I just did something. I recorded something that sounded pretty good in the studio, and the engineer and the guys in the band, they held up all these tapes saying, "Sorry, we had an accident." And of course, I believed it. I went, "Oh no." But I said, yeah, we played that trick on everyone the first time in the studio. Yeah.
You were only 20 years old.
Yeah, I was 20. I was still a baby.
Yeah. So you shared stages, recording studios and music writing with many artists. From Brian May, Sally Oldfield, Richie Havens, Steve Walsh, Chester Thompson, Tony Levin, John Whedon, Anthony Phillips, Ian MacDonald, to Ian Mosley, Chris Squire, and Steven Wilson, and so on.
Yes.
The number of your collaborations is pretty infinite. Is there any one of them that you recall for any special reason?
Well, I remember working with all these people. I remember working with Brian May, and that was very interesting, you know, because he's such a great electric guitarist, you know, who's able to orchestrate with the guitar, and I think he's one of a pretty sort of rare breed of you know, people who are perhaps he's a writer first and a guitar hero second, because I think, you know, the rest of his ideas were very, very good, and I noticed in the studio he worked very, very quickly as we were doing things together. So yes, he's been, you know, marvelous and an influence on so many. Working with Richie Havens, for instance, who's no longer alive, out of that list.
On that record.
Yes, that's right. He, I was a big fan of his, and I saw
from the Genesis period.
Yes, all of the guys in Genesis loved Richie Havens' voice. You know, we loved his voice, and I remember Phil Collins saying he loved his guitar style as well, and he was a very modest man, Richie Havens. I said, "Oh yeah, you know, we really like your guitar style," and he said, "Yeah, I've been scratching away for years." But, you know, he just had this beautiful voice that's a cross between velvet and leather. And we were recording one of the tracks, Icarus Ascending, on Please Don't Touch. And there was this note that I was looking for him singing at the end of one of the verses. And we all in the control room, we said, "It's a little bit short, Richie. Could you hold it a little bit longer?" And he tried it 2 or 3 times, and it still wasn't long enough. And then he said, "Yeah, let me have another go." So we went for this note, and he hit this note, and he sustained it really, really loud, much longer, twice as long as all the other takes. And then at the end of it, he bent down like this, and he walked backwards, and we thought he was going to pass out. And Dave LeBolt, who was his keyboard player, the guy that introduced me to him, said, yeah, he does this after the end of every concert. He genuflects, he hyperventilates, because he gives so much. He hasn't literally got any air left in his lungs. And after every concert, he was bent over. And you can see that when you see the film of Woodstock.
Woodstock, yeah, absolutely.
When he's finished, because it was actually a great long set that he did. You know, they cut it down from...
He started...
I think he did 2 hours or 2.5 hours. And you see him covered with sweat. He's given his all, and he's bending over. You can see this thing, you know. Dave said to me, the first time I worked with him live, I thought he was going to die after the end of this first concert. Well... Anyway, he didn't die for many years. Unfortunately, the Grim Reaper claimed him, but I'm sure he's out there in the world of spirit. He's probably listening to this. And I just got a recording recently of someone gave it to me, said, this was a message he gave to you back in 1980, and he said, hi, Steve, how you doing, man? And enjoyed doing the album. And when are we going to do the next one? You know, and... So, in the next world, of course.
Conversely, is there an artist on earth you would really appreciate to work with, but you never met?
Well, I did meet someone who, funnily enough, who worked with Richie Havens and was a friend of his, and the lady Buffy St. Marie, who was a wonderful singer and writer and extraordinary...
She's got Indian roots.
Yes, that's right, Indian roots, Cree Indian roots, and I think part Italian as well, roots in the family, strangely enough. And I've met her a couple of times, but this time we're going to see her. She's doing a show in Leeds, I think it is, in the north of England, in the Midlands and the north. And she is going to be doing a concert with Morrissey. And I'm supposed to be meeting her, and I hope to get to talk to her and talk about maybe doing something at some point.
Maybe she's older than you.
She's a little bit older than me, yeah. Yes. But fantastic singer, a wonderful writer, and songs that were covered by Elvis and many others.
Yes, I've got an album, Illuminations.
Yes, beautiful album. It's got poppies on Illuminations. The last track, extraordinary.
About the live show experiences.
Yes.
You've toured all around the planet.
Yes.
Do you keep any special memory about a very magic or strange moment that you lived in some place of the world on tour, on stage or off stage? Something so wonderful or so intense that you will remember very well all life long?
Well, I've had many experiences on the stage. I think that if you spend a lifetime on the stage, pretty much everything that you can imagine will happen at some point. I've seen people get injured on stage. I've seen the stage catch fire. I've had many wonderful moments, victories. But I remember we were playing a place, very early days of Genesis. We were about to play in Scotland. And it was a place where, by reputation, they were supposed to be a very difficult audience. And they said to us, you know, Green's Playhouse, they make you or break you. You know, so I was terrified to play there, to be honest. We couldn't go on stage because there was something wrong with the equipment. It was all live and people were getting electric shocks. And it meant we had to cancel the concert. And we came back, I think it was about 2 weeks later. And I thought, we're going to go back and the audience is going to give us hell. But actually, we went back on stage and the whole audience got up on their feet. So it was completely the opposite of what I imagined. I imagined we were going to be led like lambs to the slaughter. And actually, we were hailed as heroes. So it's worth sticking your head in the lion's mouth sometimes, you know.
And about the relationship with your supporters that are very close. And with Italian fans, it is very deep since a long time.
Yes.
Especially in cities like Roma, Genova, Milano, or Palermo,
Yes.
where you recorded a live album in a theater. Do you have a favorite place in our country?
To tell you the truth, I think all of Italy is absolutely amazing. I have many friends who love to come here, not just the Genesis guys, but I think it's always been a case of, from the moment I got to visit Italy, I had the impression of people didn't just welcome you as a friend, it was like extended family. You know, this idea of sitting down at the table, and it was about much more than just the food, which is always magnificent, of course, and the wine. So it was the first place that Genesis got used to playing to big audiences, and the first place we got used to eating big meals. And it was great fun. I loved it. So I couldn't say one place was any more wonderful than another. You know, even up to recently, I'm always discovering new places here. Just fantastic. You have everything here. You see, you have the technology, you have the fashion, you have the food, you have the friendship, you have the landscapes, you have the weather, you have the architecture. You know, whether it's you know, the beautiful temples of Sicily. You know, the connection with history, the Phoenicians, the Greeks. You have it all, and Italy marches on into the future, carrying its ghosts arm in arm, and that's very beautiful. That so much of the past is honoured here. You know, it's fantastic, and everywhere here has that. It's all special. So you probably don't realise when you're Italian and you go abroad, you can't work out why people are not as friendly. But there's something about Italy. It's always been open and just wonderful to visit Pompeii for the first time as a young 21-year-old. You know, was just mind-blowing. Staggering that it's still there and that you can still walk in the footsteps of the fallen, and imagine what it's like just to wander around the corner and get a pizza thousands of years ago. You know this feeling. Just extraordinary. I can't talk about it enough, you know, the way the architecture is and the colonnades, the whole way that works. So it seems to predate Paris, of course. You know, I think Paris is largely built on the model that Rome perhaps first had. And yes, you have everything. You have the music as well.
In fact, what kind of memory do you have about Italian bands that you knew in the past, like Osanna, FM, Banco, Goblin, or Aria, and so on?
Well, we played many shows with these bands, and even now, sometimes I've you know, as recently worked with Goblin in Rome a couple of years back, and I think it's what, you know, the musicians share amongst themselves. It's been marvelous. So those collaborations kind of go on, whether it's with individuals, and I look forward to doing more of it. You know, it's very open. That's the thing about here. There seems to be an appreciation of everything from bel canto opera to, you know, you think of someone like Pavarotti singing the song, the Caruso song, and then you think of Zucchero's version of the same song, and they're both powerful and wonderful, and honouring another singer, of course, you know, or at least so it seems to me. Yeah, you know, I've listened to everyone from Caruso to Mario Lanza. I love it, you know. It's fantastic. I've even seen Puccini being done on a grand scale in an indoor arena at Wembley in London, and it was like the size of a football pitch indoors, and seeing tons of people, you know, a ballet company dancing with slow movements of Tai Chi, doing Turandot, and smoke coming out of urns, and you think, boy, this is just as powerful as rock and roll. This is the rock and roll perhaps of its day. It was the spectacle of its day, and Aida in Verona. Yes. So it's all theatre, isn't it? You know, the similarities are greater than the differences.
And when will we see the Steve Hackett group on stage here in Italy?
I hope in September. I'm touring at the end of the year. I'm doing the UK, Britain in October. I think I'm doing America in November. But this all has to be agreed. You know, the British dates are set, but I'll be celebrating several things. From Acolyte, it's the 40th anniversary of my first album, Acolyte. It was 1975. And
that one.
That one over there, yes. And I was.
So, do you still have in mind to play a mix of songs from
Yes.
the Voyage of the Acolyte
Yes.
to celebrate his 40th anniversary? Together with a mix of Genesis songs and the new songs
and the
from
new ones from Wolflight.
Yeah.
So it's, as ever, it's going to be a mixture because I want to honour the past. And agents and promoters have said, you know, you did a very good job of the Genesis stuff, and people loved it, bringing back the dream. So I don't want to deny people the dream of that. I want to keep the flame going for that, you know. I still believe in it. I still love it. I think it was marvellous music, in many ways unsurpassed. So it's a privilege to do that again. And but there is an afterlife. You know, there is a Genesis afterlife, and it's called Wolflight at the moment.
Yes. And did you ever see the famous Canadian tribute band called Musical Box on stage? And which is your feeling if you?
Well, I actually agreed to what they were playing the Royal Albert Hall, and they asked me if I would get up and play Firth the Fifth with them. So I said okay, I would do that, and I did that.
Was it a strange feeling?
It was a great feeling because it was as if it's this thing about the past and the present catching up with each other, because obviously the song is very old, from 1973, but somehow it's got that timeless quality. So I did that, and then Phil Collins played with them as well at some point, and I did something with them in Switzerland, I think it was, playing musical box. You know, their title track, yes, and our title track of the song from Nursery Crime, and all of it in a way gave me the idea that really that music lives on, whether it's being played by an orchestra or a tribute band, or in whatever form it is. That music refuses to lie down and die. It's part of the culture of many countries.
Yes. And last two questions. To make a sort of balance of your career,
yeah,
basically of your artistic choices, after so many years, if we could back to 77,
yes,
would you take the same decision you took by that moment, leaving the band to go on by yourself as a solo artist?
That's an extraordinary one, this, because I'm thinking of the final scenes of The Godfather, you know. Excuse me. But yes, I probably couldn't have negotiated a piece, you know, so that everyone would have carried on. But then I wouldn't have done all the other albums that we're surrounded with here. So I wouldn't want to change history and say, then I wouldn't have done Spectral Mornings, I wouldn't have done Squacket, I wouldn't have done GTR, I wouldn't have worked with Randy Crawford, and 20 other guitarists that I've worked with in my life. From Steve Rothery to Steve Wilson to all these other things. So, Genesis was a very important part of my life, and I love the music. We're all still friends, the guys together. I think that's important. We still have love for each other. There's still a lot of competition between everyone, of course. It's a very competitive band, but But you know, maybe one day there'll be a chance for everyone to play on stage again. Maybe, but meanwhile, of course, you could wait forever and a day for that to happen. So I decided to go out and do my own version of that, and you know, the relationship with the audience and with the music. It's important not to say goodbye to the child or the adolescent in you. So if I can take the young man with me into the future and the young dreams, that's what made up, you know, that magnificent body of work that everybody wrote. You know, it was a great collection of writers, and I'm very proud of all of that. So I still have a relationship, and I feel I have a responsibility towards it. It's not a duty. It's because I love it. It's why would you abandon a child? It's beautiful. It still lives.
So from all the Genesis fan, can we have to expect a temporary reunion of that legendary lineup sooner or later? Well,
like I said, you know, it's always possible, and all the guys in the band know that I'm available for that. But you have to have everyone, you know, thinking along the same lines at the same time, and it has to be approached in a very non-competitive, collaborative kind of way. So it might be possible one day. It might be possible.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.